Welcome to Upstate Impact, the podcast that explores the stories of business owners, leaders, and influential figures shaping upstate New York. Each episode uncovers their path, the challenges they've faced, and the impact they're making in their industries and communities. And now, your host, Luke Cometti.
Adam Mazzoni, thanks for coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, Luke. What an honor it is to be sitting in this room with you talking into microphones. I'm psyched about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to dive into it here. Got a lot to talk about. We could just start. Obviously, I know your background, but maybe for the listeners, stud coming out of West Jenny, hockey, lacrosse, playing at Binghamton, Division I lacrosse.
Division I lacrosse, yep.
Obviously that dream comes to an end for all of us.
Yeah.
And then post-graduation, what was your plan? What happened after that?
I was not prepared for that, and I feel like a lot of people are in a very similar situation. I had made the air quotes mistake of going to school and getting a degree in something that I loved. I had passion for, but I failed to realize what the real world professional workforce implications were. Like, I got a degree in forest ecology. I can tell you all the trees in your yard and in the forest. I can look at the ground and be like, oh, you know what? At one point, this land used to be a farm or something like that, and I can tell you the difference between different maple trees and stuff like that. But when it comes time to join the workforce, it's hard to find a job in that with that kind of expertise, if you will. So I had to fall back on something. I had a summer. I didn't get into grad school to further my education. But even at that point, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it anyway. So
yep.
What did I do? I said, you know what? I always liked cooking. I always liked food. I wished Binghamton had a culinary program. I wished West Genesee had some sort of culinary program. And so I just landed a temporary summer job in a restaurant. I helped open a Mexican restaurant out in Cicero. I was the guy rolling burritos, greeting you as you came down the line, white, brown, rice kind of thing. And that slowly worked its way up into a general management of the entire restaurant position over the course of like 2 or 3 years, something like that. Okay. And that's how I came to be in this kind of hospitality focused around food, kind of career.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that once you graduated, you're like, whoa, I got a degree in something. I don't know if I'm going to pursue anything in this degree I just got. That's something I try to tell. Like, I do a mentorship program with young athletes at Syracuse, and they're, they have this grand plan of what they're going to do. And I'm like, you're 21. Like, you don't know what you're going to do. I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm 34. So what should you focus on? Don't get me wrong. If you want to be an accountant, you got to get an accounting degree, right? You got to go pre-law if you want to be a lawyer. Actually, you don't even have to, but pre-med if you want to be a doctor. But for a large majority of us, it's like, learn some skills. Learn something that doesn't matter what you do, it's going to be helpful. And I'm sure, you picked up things along your 4-year degree there, and then obviously it took you on a path that you probably had no idea, as far as coming up through the restaurant business, and then obviously into an entrepreneurial type career. Why don't you talk about, how that started, right? You're at a restaurant, you're in the food industry.
Yeah. What
made you want to go on your own?
Yeah, food industry. And at the same time at home, I'm growing, I have a garden, right? Love that. Had an abundance of cucumbers. I love cucumbers. I'll eat them every which way. But I had so many cucumbers. So what's the next logical step? You make pickles. I made pickles. And maybe I'm biased towards my own pickles, but man, these were really good.
You make good pickles.
They're good pickles.
I was talking to my dad before the podcast. He's like, ask him about the pickles because I really like those. What happened to those?
So, so I made pickles and they, kind of circulated through my, primary tier of friends, family, things like that. And everyone's like, man, these are good pickles. These are good pickles. I believed that they were good and others believed that they were good. And, eventually with some coercion from my dad, I started to make them as like a little bit of a side gig. I had left the Mexican restaurant. I was working at a deli downtown that was open Monday through Friday. So I had Saturdays and Sundays, if needed, to go into the kitchen and make pickles. So I would go to the market, the regional market. I would go to one of the big produce vendors.
Great market.
Oh, it's a great market. Love that market. Summertime, I mean, like pretty soon. Oh, it's going to explode.
Every Saturday morning I'm there.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm jealous
90% of our food there.
I'm jealous of that. That used to be me. I used to go Saturday. I used to wake up at 4 a.m. I used to get there. It used to be dark out. I would pick up my 2-3 bushels of cucumbers. I'd peruse the market and then go like grab, some habaneros if I needed some fresh herbs, whatever. Just the best. And then I'd go pickle, for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours on a Saturday, jar them or do them in buckets, and slowly built this kind of like clientele of, people just coming in for jars. I would sell to farm stands and, little like stores that are like more specialized goods, things like that.
Yep.
But also sell buckets of spirits to delis and restaurants to serve alongside sandwiches and burgers and things like that.
Real quick, not to interrupt you, these pickles are really good. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you go from that to like, I'm talking to 10 restaurants and I'm supplying them with pickles? Are you just cold calling restaurants? Did the word just get out? You give them to some friends, they liked them, they told people about them, and it eventually got there? How did that happen?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a little bit of like guerrilla marketing. I would just go around and be like, this brewery, I see you're serving
Pickle man here.
Yeah, right. I go with a jar. I go with a jar of pickles, a little free sample, right? And I'd say, hey, my name's Adam. I make pickles. I see you have like some things on your menu that come with a pickle or would be really great with a pickle. Here they are. I'll check back in a week. If you like them, maybe we can work something out. And if not, that's fine. Enjoy.
Nice.
So it kind of worked like that. I also had at the deli a little bit of an outlet or a little bit of a kind of a vendor space there. So I would sell them there. I'd sample them there and say, hey, if you like those, right behind you, there are some jars that you could take home. So that went from, a couple varieties of pickled cucumbers to carrots to beets and then eventually to eggs. Sold to some breweries, did some things like that. It was really fun. And that's what got the entrepreneurial ball rolling for me. It kind of gave me that itch. Like, what else can I do with food? Because all I really love to do, besides identify trees, is make people happy with food. I love it.
Some people are happy by you identifying trees as well.
100%. Let's not
Different.
downplay that. But yeah, a different kind of happiness comes when you pour the queso over someone's burrito, or when you give them this nice flavorful pickle, and now I get to do that with chocolate.
Yeah. I love that you kind of just went out there and you're like, hey, here's a jar of our pickles. I think it'd be great with this sandwich. Try them out. Let me know if you're interested. I think it's important for anyone starting in any endeavor. Sometimes you have to kind of give away a little bit, right? Almost be undeniable, right? If they have that pickle and they're like, this is delicious, we got to get these in here, right? He would have never, or she would have never tried that if you didn't do that. Instead of saying, hey, you want to buy my pickles? No, buddy, we got plenty of pickles. We're good, right? How do you have to be able to give up some for free. And I think that gets overlooked.
I think that's kind of the most important part of, especially getting started. It worked for me. It worked for me. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody and in every, kind of facet of life or whatever kind of product you're selling. But in my experience, if someone came to my deli or restaurant and was like, hey, I make this product. Number one, I put a face to a name already. I put a product to a face. We have a personal connection already.
Yep.
And then I get to taste
Local.
it. Yeah, exactly. I get to taste it and go, wow, this is pretty good. It's a lot harder to say no to somebody like that than it is to get a phone call, ring, 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 I make pickles. Okay, thanks.
Exactly.
That's it, you know? So to have something, a little treat, free jar of pickles. Let me know if you like them.
Yeah. So logical next step, pickles. Why not chocolate?
Beats chocolate. Yeah. Pickles eat chocolate.
I've been to Sweet on Chocolate a few times. I haven't seen chocolate covered pickles yet, so I'm not sure where the connection was. But why don't you walk us through how you went from that venture to now Sweet on Chocolate?
Yeah. I did pickles as like a Saturday side gig for 5 years or so, five or 6 years, and built it up slowly to a pretty viable business venture. And I was at this kind of crossroads again in my life where I was like, do I really want to stay in the traditional kind of restaurant, hospitality, food scene for my life and make that my career? Hours are long. It's tough. It's a grind.
Yeah. Did that hit you at one point, or was that like over a year? You're like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. What kind of sparked you to maybe look elsewhere?
Yeah, I got into my late 20s, and I just thought, like, when I'm 50 and I have kids, like, do I want to be, working like 60, 70 hours a week, for somebody else?
Yeah.
That's, please, if anyone who is from my previous job is listening, what has nothing to do with the way that I was treated at that business. It was wonderful, but just a career decision.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
And so I was like, maybe I work for myself. Maybe I start making pickles. But that was a big risk. It was a big risk to take it from what I was doing to make it like a full-time, I can pay myself kind of thing.
And did you end up doing that?
No, I didn't.
No.
I didn't, because at the same time, Luke, a gentleman approached me, a friend approached me and said, hey, there's a chocolate shop that's for sale in Armory Square. I think you'd be good for this. Are you interested? And I said, well, geez, I'm looking to do something entrepreneurial. I'm looking to be a business owner, but this is already an established business.
Yep.
It's specialized, and this is a great opportunity for me. The pickles dream doesn't have to die, but I have to kind of put it on the back burner for a while. So I made the jump to chocolate.
Wow. So it sounds like you probably had a path with pickles to be on your own, but you got interrupted and you pivoted because of an opportunity. I mean, it must have been, that is a big step. It's a foreign industry for you. I mean, it's somewhat foreign, right?
Yeah.
To the food industry, but chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
specialty chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you're not just, hey, I'm going to make some chocolate, start selling it. You can't kind of bootstrap that. It's an existing business. I assume there was a cost with that. So that's a bigger risk. Walk us through that. I mean, were you like, I don't know if I can, it's a lot of pickles I got to sell, to afford it. How did you get to the point where you're like, hey, this is it, it's worth the investment, or I see it's going to be worth the investment? How did that happen?
For the chocolate?
Yes.
Yes. This business had been around since 1993.
I meant sell a lot of pickles to afford the chocolate.
Oh, you gotcha.
That's it.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I had a sum of money from pickles. And so I used that to invest into the pickle, to buy the new register, to buy, to fund X, Y, and Z. It wasn't a huge amount. This person that approached me also was very generous and said, hey, listen, I'd be willing to, front you some money so we can get some things going, pay me back over the course of, a few years. And so that is kind of how that got started. The chocolate shop was already there. It had a customer base. The previous owner was running out of steam. He had lost the passion for the business, and it was starting to decline. Yeah, exactly. And so I saw that as an opportunity. It was very tough at first to get people to, realize that we're open, thrive, about to thrive again. It was like a plant. It was like a dying plant that just got some water. It took a little while for it to like perk back up, but it got there.
That's awesome. That's sounded like, obviously it's pretty lucky. You had a friend approach you, say, hey, great opportunity. And you're like, yes, this is something I want to do. I want to go on my own. However, you did say you had a sum of money saved up. I mean, how important was that, right? Imagine if you went and just got a couple nicer cars, right? You're living paycheck to paycheck. I think being an entrepreneur, a big part of that's kind of overlooked is you got to be ready. It's lucky, but you have to be ready when the luck strikes, right? You got to have that sum of money to be able to buy into the company, to be able to then be where you are now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're looking back like, thank God I saved that money.
100%. Because I always knew that I wanted to do something more, and that money was going to be for that next step of pickles. But this opportunity came. And you talk about luck, and the way I see luck now, like it can be lucky to be walking down the street and a $20 bill blows by, right? You can be lucky, but there's a lot of luck that we talk about in our lives that I don't really think is luck. I think it's just the culmination of good decisions that you make. If you make good decisions, and there's no one good decision, there are lots of good decisions on any one situation that you can make, but if you make a good decision, better things I think are going to happen to you. And I think we see that as luck, and we don't realize that years ago I made a decision to be friends with the right people and to work hard and show the people around you that you can follow through on things and be a good investment. I think that pays off eventually. And I think that for me, it did. The coincidence and timing might have been lucky, but I think that some decisions that I made years ago kept me in a spot for when that time was right. It was right.
The wisdom I feel like we have now with something like that is hard to explain to someone who's 24 trying to make a go of it.
Yeah.
They want results right away.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, you make the good decisions. Ultimately, it's going to pay off. Something's going to happen. You're going to get that opportunity. And if as long as you build those habits, right, you want to have that goal. But if you build the right habits and you're doing it every day and you're enjoying the process of it, good things are going to happen. And you're going to end up striking gold one way or another. And even if it's a path you didn't necessarily expect.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And you set that big long-term goal. But don't forget to set these little goals along the way. I think those are the good decisions that you make. So you can still be achieving goals and feel like you're accomplishing something, which I think is also really important to stay motivated. But don't lose sight of that really long-term goal. That's like the real pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
And athletics taught us that 100%.
I owe it all, not all. I owe a lot of it to, the athletic programs, the hockey and lacrosse programs that I was involved in. The coaching was great. They were great mentors for not only the sport, but life.
Yeah,
I feel. And I think that those are fundamental building blocks that you need. You don't just get them from coaches, but at least in my experience, I think about those lessons that I've learned, and some of those people along the way are some of my greatest mentors. And I didn't even know it at the time.
Very true.
Yeah.
You almost took it for granted. But then in hindsight, you're like, whoa, they had quite an impact.
Yeah.
So they think about it. They tilt you a little way, and then all of a sudden, 10, 15 years later, you're down that path, and you're very thankful. Today's episode of Upstate Impact is brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Central New York, the window and door replacement company setting the standard for quality and craftsmanship. If you're looking for durability, energy efficiency, and expert installation, Renewal by Andersen delivers. Their exclusive Fibrex material combines the strength of wood with the low maintenance benefits of vinyl, providing a stronger, more beautiful, and longer lasting solution for your home. With their signature service, every step, from design consultation to professional installation, is built around convenience, expertise, and long-term value. Their industry-leading process ensures a smart investment that enhances both comfort and style. Click the link in our show notes to set up a free quote today and take the first step towards transforming your home. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service. So the current owner, not into it anymore. Sweet on Chocolate was the name when you bought it.
Yes.
Wasn't on the best path. It was existing customer base, obviously was in business, but like you said, it was almost dying at that point. What was your first step? What did you know what you needed to do? Did you need to work in the business a little while to figure out what you needed to do? How did that work?
I started after I made the decision to say, let's do this. I started going after work to the chocolate shop to kind of just like learn, just like watch, learn, get a sense of what was going on. I think the previous owner, he was a little outdated maybe. And if that happens and your sales start to go down, you could make the argument that well, maybe I'm not doing enough as a business owner. Or you could say it's everybody else's fault. And I think that he chose everybody else's fault. And so he started to see his business decline, and you start to go, well, this business isn't what it used to be.
People don't like chocolate anymore.
He ran a story in the paper that was like, Sweet on Chocolate closes after 25 years or something like that. So for the first 4 to 6 months, it was a battle of just people being like, oh, I thought you were closed. I thought you were closed. Wait, Sweet on Chocolate's open? So that was an uphill battle.
Yeah.
You know, and then to kind of just also rebrand. We kept the name the same because this was so synonymous with Armory Square. It's been down there, you know, just as long, if not longer, than Kitty Hoynes and Possibilities.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And you think of those businesses as like Armory Square mainstays.
Staples.
Sweet on Chocolate was there before or around the same time. So, pretty amazing. And I give the previous owner, a lot of credit for that. I will never discredit that because that's pretty awesome. So, but it was up to me now to bring this business into the current day.
Yeah.
You know, to take my vision for it and make it a more fun, exciting place for people to be, and not just for birthdays and anniversaries and holidays, to make it a place to come for chocolate all year round. Just because you're in the area or because you ran out of something sweet at home, you come get a little box and you got counter chocolate for the week. You know, that's a nice thing to have.
Counter chocolate.
That's
I like that.
That's a luxury.
Can be dangerous.
But you made it
yes.
when you got counter chocolate. But yeah, so rebrand, new logo, new vibe, new atmosphere, new items, new variety. Just I wanted people to walk in and go, whoa, this isn't the old place. Someone new is here, and
they're definitely open.
Yeah, we're definitely open, and the future is bright. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, honestly, it was people poking their head in and going, I thought you guys closed. I'm like, the door's open. Come on in.
You mentioned they're a staple on Armory Square. I didn't realize they had been there that long. I can imagine it looked probably a little different when you started out to what it is today. Now, you've been the owner for how long at this point?
Oh my gosh, since September 2018, so I'm coming up on 7
years.
years.
Okay. What's your experience being down in Armory Square? You know, you think of it as kind of the premier location for bars and restaurants in the city of Syracuse. Yeah. Obviously, you get foot traffic. There's a lot of positives. I imagine there's some things that aren't great, like, you know, sometimes it's hard to park if it's a busy time, right? So people aren't maybe stopping in as much. There's some crime issues down there from time to time. What are your overall thoughts being on Armory Square? Are you glad you're there? You know, do you think you would thrive as much somewhere else?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Have you even thought about this? Probably not. Right?
I have. I've thought, like, you know, where would I go next if I run out of space here and the business is just doing, you know, so well that I need a bigger space, and it just can't be in Armory or on the same block anymore. I mean, the goal would be to stay on the block. If I had to move, if I had to shift to a different, you know, retail space, I'd still want it to be like in Armory Square.
Okay.
It's just I feel like it's synonymous with Armory Square.
And you got Flintstone across the street, which probably bodes pretty well.
Dude,
for
when
a
they
chocolate
moved
shop.
in, when I heard that they were going to be moving in, I'm like, yes, this is great. Like, Urban Outfitters was nice to have too.
Sure.
But, Flintstone, solid 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Solid 1-2 punch on the 200 block.
They're growing, so maybe you just move across the street wherever they are.
Maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I don't see this business elsewhere as much as I would want to just try and make it work where I am.
Yeah.
You know? That's a tough one. I grapple with that a lot. I really do.
When you think of growth, I'm sure we're talking about growing your space, right? Maybe tenant next door moves out, you move into there. That's one, obviously, brick and mortar type of growth, but there's obviously growth beyond that. Online, e-commerce, you know, different events you could be at. You know, you have a road show of Sweet on Chocolate. Is that something you're pursuing? Is that something you have done? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. When I bought the business, there was no e-commerce, so we started that. And and that has kind of grown into this pretty viable thing. It's not the same as our walk-in traffic. It's not even close, probably, but certain times a year, oh my gosh, the mail lady, my gosh, shout out to Kathy, because she is a champ. She's taken 30, 40 packages a day sometimes from us to get shipped out. It's wild.
And it's necessary because it doesn't cost you much.
It's just, the extra postage, which the customer pays for. It's, time. It's time and labor, obviously increased production. But we can, that's what we want. I want to be able to have a business that can support a staff, a good wage for my staff. I want to be able to supply them with a fun job. And, so growing the business in the ways that you're speaking of, is really important. So e-commerce was one. Wholesale. We started doing a lot of wholesale. We got probably like a dozen wholesale accounts where we sell our chocolate bars too, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
Far away as like Delphi, and yeah, most of them are pretty local though. But we get down near like Colgate. There's a spot. So yeah,
these like shops that just offer your chocolate as an item.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We got some candle shops, like, if I could shout out a couple other local businesses, may I?
Of course.
Okay, great. So Be Kind Candle Shop in Tip Hill. They sell a lot of our chocolate bars. They're wonderful. Their candles are great. And they have a lot of other like local goods there.
Is that right next to Recess?
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's another solid 1-2 punch. Curd Nerd in East Syracuse, or James Street, Eastwood. They're crushing it. They got some big things going on there, but they move a lot of our bars. Great little company.
A lot of people talking about Curd Nerd.
Yeah.
I haven't been there yet, but I would love to go there because obviously I'm a big cheese curd. I mean, not obviously, but it's something that I would enjoy. Oh. And I've only heard great things. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And Sarah is very knowledgeable. She won like a cheesemonger, National Cheesemonger Award. She's also a fellow Binghamton alumni, so gotta support that. Bearcat.
100%. And really great local business. But yeah, just kind of that vibe, right? Kind of that vibe. Small business, local products, sweet on chocolate.
7 years in.
Yeah.
Looking back. Mistakes? Is there anything that you're like, that was probably a waste of time? Something that if a listener who's aspiring to go in a similar direction, hey, I did this, probably shouldn't have done that. Obviously, you make mistakes, but usually you don't have regrets because the mistake may be, either right or you learn, right, as they say. So what are some things that come to mind after 7 years of stepping into this business, giving it a go, and I've seen some success now? Yeah.
One of my biggest philosophies is this kind of fear of overextending and getting people excited about something and then having to like retract it.
Yeah.
I have seen it in other businesses, other business owners where they try and do a little too much too fast, and then then quality goes down somewhere, or they have to backtrack, and it's a waste of time and a waste of money.
Quality of life goes down.
100%. So my philosophy is kind of like, I'm gonna think about this for like months, and then once I've thought about it for a few months, then I'm gonna like slowly start to integrate it and kind of put my feelers out a little bit more. So I really don't make a lot of quick, rash decisions, and I feel like when the time is right, the time is right. And I know it's right because I've thought about it and kind of imagined it in my brain like a million times. So that being said, I have bought some equipment that was pretty costly that I just don't really use like I think I wanted it to. You
had a vision of how it was going to go. And
yeah,
it ended up. Yeah.
Exactly. But, overall, major catastrophic mistakes, I say, will probably be close to none. I mean, it's just honestly mostly the day-to-day. We're operating pretty smoothly, but sometimes you have a customer interaction and you go, man, I didn't handle that the way I should have. But in the moment,
it's hard.
It's hard to do. I guess the biggest mistakes that you make are the ones years down the road you go, oh man, I probably should have done that. But that's hard to realize in the moment too. So my philosophy and my advice is to You don't need to be in a rush. There are times where you got to move fast, but I think overall, you should really mull it over and not feel like you need to move quickly for the sake of moving quickly.
I couldn't agree more. I was just on the phone with Joe Pompo, a co-founder of Get Reps, my co-founder of Get Reps. And we were just talking about how slow and steady wins a race. And
Yeah.
it's kind of been a theme the last year for us. You know, we've been in business for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And initially it's like, we got to go. And it's a little different starting from nothing, trying to get it going, right? You had an existing business, so you have a little more of a luxury to be able to, okay, let's think about this.
Yeah.
As opposed to, we got to go. We got to, throw darts at the wall here, see what sticks. However, if you slow and steady, you don't, expose yourself too much, and you're able to just stay in it and learn and refine and dial it in. In 1 year, 2 years, all of a sudden you know so much more.
Yeah.
And you're like, we're that much further ahead because we didn't make that catastrophic mistake.
Yeah.
So as much as you want to go and like, hey, believe me, this is going to work. I know it. If you can just make sure that you're not making that big mistake and you just stay in it, the longer you stay in it, the more success you're probably going to see, or the better outcome you're probably going to have. Reminds me of like, it's not timing of the market, it's time in the market, right? When you talk about investing, it's kind of a similar approach. Just stay in it long enough and learn and don't make a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah. If you're there and you're ready when those opportunities present, you're good. You're prepared for that. I just don't like rushing into things like that.
Yeah. It's clearly worked out.
It's so far. So far. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's next? I mean, do you have anything in the pipeline? Are you pretty content with what you have now? I'm sure you always have things that are up and coming that you're thinking about. Maybe you're 2 months in, you give it another 2 months, and you'll pull the trigger if you're still high on it.
Yeah.
But what's potentially next for you?
Yeah, I kind of I love the way things are going. The business is running well, but I just want to generally increase our business. You talked about quality of life can go down when you start doing too much, and a motto that I have in my head is like, well, how big of a pain in the butt do I want my life to be? Do I want to be doing so many things and having to worry about reasons X, Y, and Z? If I can avoid that, I will. So if I could have a business that I can just run right out of this space and make enough money to support my staff and to support my modest lifestyle and provide a great commodity to the community, that's kind of all I need. But if I could have a dream for Walton Street, it would be to grow my business so that I do need a bigger space. I find a bigger space magically. It appears on the block. And I turn it into some sort of mixed use space that has chocolate, a cafe so that I could do hot chocolates, because that was one of those fun decisions that we made at Sweet on Chocolate. So let's offer a really great hot chocolate. We're a chocolate shop. We should have the best hot chocolate around, and I think we do.
Good point.
Yeah. So, have more of we don't offer coffee or anything like that though right now, but because I just don't have the space. But
is that part of the dream?
The part of the dream might be to have a cafe we can offer, because there's not a lot of coffee in Armory Square anymore since Freedom of Espresso and Starbucks went bye-bye.
True.
So more traditional kind of cafe, but also be doing our really amazing hot chocolates right out of there. A little more production space for the chocolate shop, that kind of thing. But then also, this is the best part, Luke, I'd love to bring back pickles. I would love to have a space, separate pickle kitchen, display cases with the pickles, get back into the wholesale game for pickles. It would be great to go to any number of restaurants, get a burger, get, whatever, and have a Mazzoni's pickle spear served alongside of it. And then also, right, who's stopping me from doing pickles on a stick? I want to see people walking around Armory Square with a big giant pickle on a stick.
Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, chocolate covered pickles. You got your sweet, your salty.
I've done
it.
It's
No brainer.
I've done it.
Not that I've ever had it, but
I did it because I still get people that come into the chocolate shop that are like, hey, what are you doing with pickles again? And last year I did this kind of revisit to Mazzoni's pickles just out of my home, just kind of sold them to friends and family kind of thing. But people got really excited about it. And it got like the dream going again a little bit, like it kind of revisited that. So I got the pickle itch. And yeah, I don't know. That dream's not dead. But chocolate covered pickles are not as bad as you think they are, but they're not as good as you want them to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't have my hopes too high on that personally. Yeah. But I mean, you heard it here. The dream's not over for Mazzoni Pickles. And I think, I'm sure as you know, you hire the right staff, things start to take care of themselves at Sweet on Chocolate. You know, you're still there if they need you, but then you can divert a little bit of your attention to getting the pickles going again. Now you have another offering. I mean, that sounds like a nice little future dream right there.
I'd love a
very attainable.
Yeah, I'd love a window that says like chocolate, coffee, pickles. Just sounds nice to me.
Yeah,
sounds like a place I'd want to go to.
It would be intriguing. For sure.
That's such a nice way of saying that. That's a little weird.
Adam, appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. Obviously, best of luck. Sweet on Chocolate on Walton Street, Armory Square. I think everyone knows where it is. And I'm sure I'll be in very soon, as I usually am. But thanks for doing this. It's been great. We'll have you back again soon.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Luke. This is really great. I'm happy to talk to the people about just my experiences, and hopefully it helps somebody somewhere.
That's it for this episode of Upstate Impact. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to subscribe and share. Stay tuned for more stories from the people shaping upstate New York. See you next time.